All right, welcome everybody. Welcome. Thanks to anyone joining live now. Welcome Ed and anyone else who jumps in. So it's been a wild day. It's been a very long day, and I'm looking forward to some siesta after this. But the day just keeps going and getting better. So yeah, I hope your day is going well, or your night or evening. Yes, I do have a giant hat line on my head. That is because I've been wearing a hat all day. I don't like having to do my hair, and so therefore I wear a hat most of the day. So let's get reading. We're reading in Joshua, from Joshua 9. We're going to start. So let's get into it. Let's see what we can learn in the Word tonight, and see where the book of Joshua leads us. Here we go. Okay, so before we get into 9, we always backtrack a little just to see where we're at. We see that Joshua renews the covenant. So at that time, Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal. So we learnt that Mount Ebal is the mountain of curses, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded the people of Israel, as it is written in the book of the law of Moses. An altar of uncut stones, upon which no man has wielded an iron tool. So whenever they made altars, they couldn't cut the stones. It had to be just the rocks as they were and built up into an altar. And they offered on it burnt offerings to the Lord and sacrificed peace offerings. And there in the presence of the people of Israel, he wrote on the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which he had written. And all Israel, sojourner as well as native born, with their elders and officers and their judges, stood on opposite sides of the ark before the Levitical priests, so the Levites were in the middle, who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, half of them in front of Mount Gerizim and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded at the first, to bless the people of Israel. And afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessing and the curse, according to all that is written in the book of the law. So once again, we see God blesses his people for their obedience, and there's a blessing for obedience, and there's a curse for disobedience. There was not a word of all that Moses commanded that Joshua did not read before all the assembly of Israel, and the women and the little ones and the sojourners who lived among them. Okay, so they offered these offerings. They're standing in front of these mountains, making these offerings to God. They're then reading all the words of the law so that everybody hears and everybody can understand what God is commanding them to do. Now we see the Gibeonite deception. As soon as all the kings who were beyond the Jordan, in the hill country and in the lowland along the coast of the great sea towards Lebanon, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites heard of this, they gathered together as one to fight against Joshua and Israel. So they've all banded together and they are coming against Israel. But when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and to Ai, they on their part acted with cunning and went and made ready provisions and took worn-out sacks for their donkeys and wineskins. This is a good story, this one. Worn out and torn and mended, with worn-out patched sandals on their feet and worn-out clothes, and all their provisions were dry and crumbly. And they went to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal and said to him and to the men of Israel, "We have come from a distant country, so now make a covenant with us." But the men of Israel said to the Hivites, "Perhaps you live among us, then how can we make a covenant with you?" They said to Joshua, "We are your servants." And Joshua said to them, "Who are you, and where do you come from?" They said to him, "From a very distant country your servants have come, because of the name of the Lord your God. For we have heard a report of him." This is really deceptive, isn't it? They've decided to do such a thing. "For we've heard a report of him and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon the king of Heshbon and to Og king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth." So the giant Og. "So our elders and all inhabitants of our country said to us, 'Take provisions in your hand for the journey and go meet them and say to them, "We are your servants. Come now and make a covenant with us. Here is our bread. It was still warm when we took it from our houses, as our food for the journey on the day we set out to come to you. But now, behold, it is dry and crumbly." So they're making it appear like all this time has passed. It's quite a good deception. "These wineskins were new when we filled them, and behold, they have burst. And these garments and sandals of ours are worn out from the very long journey." What's kind of ironic about it is that, they're talking about all these things are worn out, and we see with God, he says, this is what he says, your clothes never worn out, your sandals never wore out, all of these things never wore out because I was with you. And so even though they're pretending here that this happened, it's just interesting that they're saying it to Israel, who have literally, been nurtured by God this whole time, and he made sure that none of their things perished on them. "And these garments and sandals of ours are worn out from the very long journey." So the men took some of their provisions, but did not ask counsel from the Lord. And Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant with them to let them live. And the leaders of the congregation swore to them. At the end of 3 days after they made a covenant with them, they heard that they were their neighbors, that they lived among them. And the people of Israel set out and reached their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gibeon, Shapira, Beeroth, and Kiriath Jearim. But the people of Israel did not attack them, because the leaders of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. So once again, they made this covenant with these men, which they didn't inquire of God about. They didn't find out who he was, who they were. And therefore God has got them on a mission to destroy their enemies and to purge the wickedness from the land. So how's he going to feel about this? Because now they've made an agreement not to purge the wickedness from their land, not to attack the cities, and so on. Then all the congregation murmured against the leaders. But all the leaders said to the congregation, "We have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, and now we may not touch them. This we will do to them, let them live, lest wrath be upon us, because of the oath that we swore to them. And the leaders said to them, let them live. So they became cutters of wood and drawers of water for all the congregation, just as the leaders had said of them. Joshua summoned them, and he said to them, why did you deceive us, saying, we are very far from you, when you dwell among us? Now therefore you are cursed, and some of you shall never be anything but servants, cutters of wood and drawers of water for the house of my God. They answered Joshua, because it was told to you, your servants, for certainty, that the Lord your God had commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. So we feared greatly for our lives because of you and did this thing. And now behold, we are in your hand. Whatever seems good and right in your sight, do to us, do it. So he did this to them and delivered them out of the hand of the people of Israel, and they did not kill them. But Joshua made them that day cutters of wood and drawers of water for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord on this day in the place that he should choose. So can you imagine if God had, if they had refused to attack the people and so forth, and then God's given them a commandment to go and attack the people? That wouldn't have been good. So what they've done, they've sorted it out themselves. But had they had to stand before God and say, yeah, we kind of made this deal, we wouldn't attack the cities, it wouldn't have gone down very well at all. So the sun stands still. As soon as Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had captured Ai and had devoted it to destruction, doing to Ai and its king as he had done to Jericho and its king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them, he feared greatly. Okay, so word spreading of the Israelites in their early conquests, so of Jericho and what's the other place? It's not Gibeon, is it? Was the first one? It's Jericho and Ai. It's the two, yeah. So their word is spreading, right? That Ai and Jericho have fallen, and that Israel have done this thing, and people are starting to hear that God is with them, and so they're starting to fear. So let's read again. So he says, as soon as Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had captured Ai and had devoted it to destruction, doing to Ai and its king as he had done to Jericho and its king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them, he feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, like one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all its men were warriors. So Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Hoham, king of Hebron, to Piram, king of Yarmouth, to Japhia, king of Lachish, and to Debir, king of Eglon, saying, come up to me and help me, and let us strike Gibeon. For it has made peace with Joshua and with all the people of Israel. Then the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmouth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, gathered their forces and went up with all their armies and encamped against Gibeon and made war against it. And the men of Gibeon sent to Joshua at the camp in Gilgal, saying, do not relax your hand from your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us and help us, for all the kings of the Amorites who dwell in the hill country are gathered against us. So Joshua went up from Gilgal, he and all the people of war. So did you notice here that at this time we see there were kings? There was the king of Jerusalem, for example. There were 5 kings, and so they went and made war against Gibeon, who'd made peace with the Israelites. So we can see that this ancient history of Jerusalem was still, and Hebron was still all going, right? It was still all going. So where are we? So Joshua went up from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. And the Lord said to Joshua, do not fear them, for I have given them into your hands. Not a man of them shall stand before you. So Joshua came upon them suddenly, having marched up all night from Gilgal. And the Lord threw them into a panic before Israel, who struck them with a great blow at Gibeon, and chased them by the way of the ascent of Beth Horon, and struck them as far as Azekah and Makkedah. So we see this giant chase of these armies, right? They're pursuing them. So obviously covering quite a long distance, they're fleeing and they're chasing them down. And as they fled before Israel, while they were going down the ascent of Beth Horon, the Lord threw down large stones from heaven on them as far as Azekah, and they died. So we learn here that God throws down large stones from heaven. All right, so he can throw down large stones from heaven. So we might, obviously have a firmament. We do have a firmament, and we know that with the firmament, it's a closed system. That God's created a closed system, but we know that God can allow these things to come through the system. Okay, so there's God's universe, which is like the third heaven, and we have the second heaven, which is like the waters above, and then we have our heaven, which is inside the firmament. And so we see that God can allow these things to go through the firmament. And the firmament is mentioned multiple times as being likened to this crystal-like substance, which we know is the sky, of course. And so when we see the sky, we see God's beautiful color blue, and the blue obviously signifies reminding us to keep God's commandments, which we see, which is on the what do they call it? The tassels of the Israelites' garments, which are called zetzites, I believe, zetzites. These blue tassels they would put on the fringes of their garments, so to remind them to keep God's commandments. So every time we look up at that sky, we can see that blue color. It reminds us God's commandments. So we see here, he throws these big stones, which is crazy. And then there's a mention of hailstones here. So there must be, where was that? Yeah, he threw down large stones from heaven as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died because of the hailstones. Okay, so there were hailstones. So when he says there were large stones, I was picturing like meteorite sort of stones. There were more who died because of the hailstones. They're just large stones. Then the sons of Israel killed with the sword. So in this case, this is not coming through. This is coming through the in the book of Enoch. It's the windows of heaven, he says. I think it's also in the Bible. It's the storehouses, actually. So the storehouses of hail. He should mention them. He calls storehouses for the yield. Storehouses of snow. Here we go. Job 38:22. So in the book of Enoch, there are these great massive storehouses of hail and things that are up in the heavens, and God can allow them through the firmament. He says in Job 38, "Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or have you seen the storehouses of the hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war? What is the way to which the place where the light is distributed, or where the east wind is scattered upon the earth?" So he's rebuking Job here, and he's saying, Job, where were you when I created these things? Have you seen these things? Do you know about these things? Where are the answers for this? And all of these questions that he poses to Job, and Job says, I can't answer. I'll be silent now. I'll be quiet. It's a really epic rebuke from God, because there's nothing you could ever say to God. What are you going to say to him? What are you going to say? There's nothing you could even say in response. And Job said nothing. He said he'll be quiet, which is absolutely what it is. So, okay, so he threw down, it says that there were more who died because of the hailstones than the sons of Israel killed with the sword. So this hail was part of God's contribution to this battle. At the time, Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the sons of Israel, And he said in the sight of Israel, sun stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still and the moon stopped, until the nation took vengeance on their enemies. So as we know, the sun rises in the east, and the sun rises at 6 a.m. and it traverses over to the west. It does a circuit. Okay, it has a circuit. It's actually a circuit. It goes around the earth. The earth doesn't go around the sun. That's called the heliocentric model. Okay, that's an old occult pagan model, by the way, if you really want to look that up. So those who push the earth going around the sun, it's an occult thing if you actually study it. So the Bible tells us that the sun, he runs like a race, right? He hurries up to get back to where he started. And so he basically starts in the east, and then he goes all the way around, and then he comes back to where he started in a circuit. And we see that he doesn't ever stop. The sun never stops moving, right? It's always moving through those periods of the day. And so therefore, this is the command for the sun to stand still. So it's stopping time, right? It's pausing our reference of time. So obviously time is disappearing, because now the sun, in whatever position it's in, it's still going to take so much time to get back around where it is. So time is literally disappearing by it standing still. So it says, is this not written in the book of Jasher? Okay, so now we have a reference to the Apocrypha. So the apocryphal works are the parts of the books that were no longer shipped with the Bible after a period of time. So the book of Jasher, the book of Enoch, what else is there that's referenced? There's one more as well that's referenced as well, I believe, in the Bible. So book of Enoch is amazing. If you read it, it would open your eyes to many things. To be honest, I've read the book of Jasher, but I haven't really studied it. I've spent a lot of time in the book of Enoch though, and probably when we finish this Old Testament read and we finished it, I think we might read, probably Lord willing, we might read some Enoch as well and have a look at that, because we'll be fresh on all of this. But ultimately, if you want to learn about how the earth works, if you read it in the book of Enoch, it pretty much tells you how the sun works, the moon works, all the light and everything, how just the volume of light and all sorts of stuff. It's pretty amazing. You can see why it's no longer sort of included in many Bibles in print, because there's lots of gaps, or there's lots of things that are additional information in these books that really help us to confirm even further things in the Bible. Yeah, Book of Enoch's great, like really is. You just got to be careful, because it's not in print, there are certain versions of it, and you're probably going to find some discrepancies in some versions. So just find a reputable version, find a commonly read version that obviously is is popular. You'll probably find. There's also some other books you can get too. I did have them at one stage, but long story. But I got rid of them. But they had all the different apocryphal works in them and so forth as well. I just wanted to focus on the Bible in the end. It got to a point where I just went, no, I can't. My focus is divided. I want to focus on the Bible. But once again, 3 books of Enoch in the book of Giants. That's it. But either which way, I'd encourage you just to have a glance at it, have a bit of a skim of it, of the book of Enoch especially. All right, the sun stopped in the midst of heaven and did not hurry to set for about a whole day. Okay, see how he hurries? So let's just go to a few scriptures here. So, like a strong man ready to run a race. Okay, so Psalm 19:5. go there. Okay, so this is really powerful, okay, because this really tells us about the stars and the purpose, or a big part of them. It's the heavens declare the glory of God. Okay, so the heavens are this declaration where we can see his handiwork. We can look up and we can see his creation. Now, while we look up, it might seem like total chaos. It actually isn't total chaos. It's amazing, right? It's amazing. And what you start to realize is that we just don't understand it. And that's the real truth. But we look up and it's this new language, and there's stories written in the sky, right? So the stars actually tell the story. They tell the story of the Bible. And when we start to study this, we realize that all the stories of the Bible are in the sky, right? They're all there. And the problem is that many of these stories in the sky have been kind of not polluted, I wouldn't say, but I'd say that all the Greek mythology has found its way there too. And so therefore, because we are a Greek/Roman society, if you will, or a pagan society, we find that a lot of that understanding and information is prevalent. And it's, when people look up at the sky, they start talking about star signs and all these things that we're supposed to not touch with a 10-foot pole. But we forget the original part of the stars and the sun and the moon. A big part of it was also to understand times and seasons. Like, it's a calendar, right? And so therefore, people or Christians, soon as they hear about the sun, the stars, they run for the hills and they immediately say, oh no, that's wicked, da 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 da. But no, we're talking about Hebrew astronomy, not astrology, right? Astrology is different. Astrology is where you start to play with star signs. You start to say, well, I'm a Leo, so I'm like this, and all that sort of stuff, right? That's astrology. That's wicked. Okay, astronomy, Hebrew astronomy was the understanding, and Moses and all these men, they knew how to orient and how to reach the right days on the calendar based on the moon cycles, based on the sun, based on the harvest periods. They knew by looking up that they had this calendar that they could reference, right? They knew how to find the middle of the month, because on the 14th and 15th day of the month, there's a full moon, right? So they know when they got a full moon, they're in the middle of the month. When they had a crescent moon, right, a thin slither, they knew it was the first day of the month, right? When they had the moon actually darkening and going into an eclipse, almost like an eclipse, they knew that they were on the last day of the month, and so on. It's a calendar, right? It's for seasons, for signs and seasons and other things. So that's what we understand. That was a big part of, what God was doing there. But the sky and the stars, it's the hosts of heaven. They're the armies of heaven. And when we look up and we see the stars are angels. Okay, the stars are angels, right? And they're referenced as the armies of heaven, the hosts, and he's the Lord of hosts. So each one of those little stars, it's like they're represented of one of his angels, right? So it's like his whole army is up there looking down upon us. And so they're the heavens in which he lives, and we understand that that's like another world, right? It's like another world in heaven, of course, with a city and so forth. But we see that the heavens that we see, the stars that he set in the firmament, are this amazing testimony to God and his creation. So the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. It tells us when we look up, we see God's work, right? We see what he's done. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words, right? Nothing is said when we look up in the heavens, but there is this language. So there is no speech nor there are words whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out throughout all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. Okay, so what is being said, even though there's no speech, there's things being said, right? It's speaking volumes, right? What we see. And what we see here is, he says, in them he has set a tent for the sun. Now, the book of Enoch calls these portals, and basically they're like invisible positions in which the sun goes to, right? And it sort of slides into these portals and goes through these different portals and positions. And basically he's compared it to like a tent or a tabernacle for the sun. Okay. And the sun, the sun, is also referred to in the Bible as the Son of Righteousness. He says the Son of Righteousness will come out with healing in his wings. And so he's comparing the sun also to Jesus. And we see here that it's like a temple. It's like a tabernacle, and the sun comes out of the temple and his light radiates throughout the world. He gives life and light. Just as Jesus is the light of the world, we see the sun represents the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom. Okay, he's the bridegroom leaving his chamber. Okay, so he comes out, and like a strong man runs its course. Okay, its course, he runs it. Okay, the world doesn't rotate around him, he runs it. The sun moves. Okay, so everything that they tell you at school is a lie, and that's because they don't want you to know the truth, and they want you to follow their heliocentric nonsense. Its rising is from the ends of the heavens, which is to the east, where we would pray towards, which is where the position of the temple. We see in the book of Daniel, he prays towards the east, which is the position of Jerusalem. And its circuit to the end of them. Okay, so it's a circuit. It goes all the way around and back. And the moon is at opposites with it. So where the sun is, the moon's at opposite with it, reflecting the light upon it. And there is nothing hidden from its heat. So when you actually start studying this and you start mapping it out, you realize that it's the southern and the northern hemisphere of the planet, and the way that this works, it's actually more functional than the model that they propose with the heliocentric model. So you have to watch a few animations of how it works, but how the portals work and how the sun moves through them. But it's just beautiful. Like it's how it's supposed to be, because it's how it is. But when you have the Earth rotating around the sun, there's a whole bunch of dodgy things that start being hard to explain. And I won't go there, but that's one of the things that you'll see that they always try and come up with all these fancy ways of explaining these things. But it really is that simple. The sun moves, right? You see the sun move, and there's evidence that you can see the sun moving and other things too. So the law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The rules of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired than they are than gold, even much fine gold. So Ed says, science experiments done years ago, what proved the Earth is in the center of the universe. Never done the third experiment. Hang on. Never done the third experiment. I'm sorry, Ed. I'm not following. Do you mean there were science experiments that were done years ago that proved the Earth is in the center of the universe? Is that what you're saying? It's been a long day, so forgive my my inability to understand. I'll keep reading, but yeah, let me know. Who can discern his errors? Declare me innocent from hidden faults. Keep back your servant, also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgression. So that's Psalm 19. All right, so going back now, the sun is doing its circuit. It goes around, and our sun is stopping, and so for an entire day, it doesn't move. Ed says they've done the same experiment twice. They never done it in the third time because it would prove that it's correct. Right, I see. I haven't heard of that, actually. I have to look into that. Okay, so the sun doesn't move. This is pretty amazing. It did not hurry to set for about a whole day. So the sun was up and it didn't move from one of the positions between, obviously, the morning and the afternoon. It stayed in that position. There's been no day like it before or since, when the Lord heeded the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. So Joshua returned and all Israel with him to the camp at Gilgal. So he literally stopped the sun moving for the voice of a man. There's also another day, just out of curiosity, there's several days, there's a couple of days like this, and this is on the video about the Hebrew calendar that we made a while ago. And it talks about this, that there's a day where Job actually said, take my birthday off the calendar, right? Wipe it from existence. So there's another day as well. There's this period of time where time has changed. There's the period of Job where he says, take my day off the calendar. And I think there's one more as well. There's like 2 or 3 moments in the Bible where time changes. There's Hezekiah's illness. That's the other one. Hezekiah's illness, where the sundial moves back so many degrees. And so therefore we see during those periods of time has changed a little bit. 5 Amorite kings executed. These 5 kings fled and hid themselves in the cave at Makkedah, and it was told to Joshua, the 5 kings have been found, hidden in the cave at Makkedah. And Joshua said, roll large stones against the mouth of the cave, and set men by it to guard them. But do not stay there yourselves. Pursue your enemies, attack their rear guard. Do not let them enter their cities, for the Lord your God has given them into your hand. When Joshua and the sons of Israel had finished striking them with a great blow until they were wiped out, and when the remnant that remained of them had entered into the fortified cities, then all the people returned safe to Joshua in the camp of Makkedah. Not a man moved his tongue against any of the people of Israel. So here we see these 5 kings from these different territories that we're seeing that came up against Israel. They've all been hiding in the cave. Okay, so, and he says, roll large stones against the mouth, so shut them in and set men to guard them, so they can't leave. And do not let them enter their cities, and so forth. And then basically, yeah, he keeps them in the cave at this time. Not a man moved his tongue against them. Yeah. So then Joshua said, open the mouth of the cave and bring those 5 kings out to me from the cave. And they did so, and brought those 5 kings out to him from the cave, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmouth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. And when they brought these out to Joshua, Joshua summoned all the men of Israel and said to the chiefs of the men of war who had gone with him, come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings. Then they came near and put their feet on their necks. And Joshua said to them, do not be afraid or dismayed, be strong and courageous, for thus the Lord will do to all your enemies against whom you fight. And afterward Joshua struck them and put them to death, and he hanged them on 5 trees. Sounds a bit like the story of Haman, doesn't it? And they hung on the trees until evening. But at the time of the going down of the sun, Joshua commanded, and they took them down from the trees and threw them into the cave where they had hidden themselves. And they set large stones against the mouth of the cave, which remain to this very day. We see these battles are very violent. So in the battle of Ai, remember how the king of Ai, he's not only just like murdered, he's strung up, his body's just like thrown. They've thrown him around. Like these scenes are really, really violent, and it's brutal, right? It's brutal. The revenge that they're taking out on the enemies. It's brutal. Like God's wrath is going to be brutal. But we see that this is quite brutal in the way that this happens, because God has commanded them to destroy their enemies. And Joshua's rising to the occasion. He's becoming this commander. He's becoming this leader, and he's more of a man of war than Moses, because Moses was bringing the Israelites through the desert. And, Moses kind of passed on the mantle to Joshua, and Joshua's kind of taken the mantle, and now he's becoming this commander of war as part of Israel. They're becoming a warring nation, if you will, because they're just destroying their enemies out of their land. As for Makkedah, Joshua captured it on that day and struck it and its king with the edge of the sword. He devoted to destruction every person in it. He left none remaining, and he did to the king of Makkedah just as he had done to the king of Jericho. Conquest of southern Canaan. Then Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Makkedah to Libnah and fought against Libnah. And the Lord gave it also and its king into the hand of Israel. And he struck it with the edge of the sword, and every person in it. He left none remaining, and he did to it its king as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Libnah to Lachish and laid siege to it and fought against it. And the Lord gave Lachish into the hand of Israel, and he captured it on the second day and struck it with the edge of the sword, and every person in it, as he had done to Libnah. Then Horam, king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish. So these are all the territories of the kings that they killed. Came up to help Lachish, and Joshua struck him and his people until he left none remaining. Then Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Lachish to Eglon, and they laid siege to it and fought against it. And they captured it on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword. And he devoted every person in it to destruction that day as he had done to Lachish. So I'm having a bit of trouble reading, because I found out, for the last 2 weeks, I've been getting a real sore throat. My voice has been breaking, and turns out that I have a tooth, right? That's something's failed in it, and a filling or whatever. And I think the tooth actually cracked. So today it was super painful, and so I don't know, in the next day or two, I might have to get it ripped out, which is not going to be fun. So I don't know, there could be a day or two where I might not be able to read too well. But I'll wait and see. I'll let you know anyway, if that comes to that. But yeah, that makes so much sense. My voice kept breaking and all this stuff happening, and it's because there's some sort of infection there. It's whatever. So, but tooth problems are painful. It's just one of those silly things. So yeah, that's why the mystery of the breaking voice, and why I've had a bit of a struggle and had to have a bit of rest the last week. It all makes sense now. And I have to keep swallowing all the time too, which is a bit annoying. So hopefully it doesn't bother you too much. All right, so Joshua and all Israel with him passed from Lachish to Eglon. They laid siege to it and fought against it. They captured it on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword. He devoted every person in it to destruction, as he had done to Lachish. Then Joshua and all Israel with him went up from Eglon to Hebron, and they fought against it and captured it and struck it with the edge of the sword, and its king and its towns and every person in it. He left none remaining, as he had done to Eglon, and devoted it to destruction and every person in it. Then Joshua and all Israel with him turned back to Debir and fought against it, and he captured it with its king and all its towns. And they struck them with the edge of the sword and devoted to destruction every person in it. He left none remaining, just as he had done to Hebron and to Libnah and its king, so he did to Debir and to its king. So Joshua struck the whole land, the hill country and the Negeb, which is the desert, and the lowland and the slopes, and all their kings. He left none remaining, but devoted to destruction all that breathed. just as the Lord God of Israel commanded. And Joshua struck them from Kadesh Barnea as far as Gaza and all the country of Goshen, which we know is where the Israelites were, where they were based in the time of Joseph, which is coming up, as far as Gibeon. And Joshua captured all these kings, and sorry, not coming up, it's already been done in Genesis, back in Genesis. And Joshua captured all these kings and their land at one time, because the Lord God of Israel fought for Israel. Then Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp at Gilgal. So there's lots of battles, right? There's lots of things going on. They're taking these 5 territories. They've killed these kings. They've taken Jericho. They've taken Ai. They've thrown the bodies of these kings in the cave at Makkedah, and so on. There's just lots going on here, and it's all kind of brought into one. So most of these things, when we read Joshua, most of this is all very much like reading a story, and it's all like interwoven into the one big story, whereas other books tend to be a bit more fragmented into random little bits here and there. But we see in Joshua it's more about this big story of all their battles. So when Jabin, king of Hazor, heard of this, I'm just checking time, he sent to Jobab, king of Madon, and to the king of Shimron, and to the king of Akshaph, and to the kings who were in the northern hill country, and in the Arabah south of Shinneroth. And I probably will just go to, I might just do another 15, 20 minutes, and I might leave it there. And it is, it's not late, but I only had 4 hours sleep last night, which is, not uncommon. It's about the usual, but it was a little bit less than probably that even. And so therefore, I think I'm going to need to probably go a bit earlier this time, just so I can live to fight another day. I live to read another day. So we'll just go for another 15, 20, and then we'll just keep it short and sweet tonight. Also, when I'm pretty fatigued as well, I find it really hard to discern the Spirit. So having a bit more difficulty tonight, but just reading and enjoying reading. So once again, we're just having a pretty bit of a read and chill tonight. But yeah, once we come back in the morning, we'll go back to our usual pattern and sort of see how we go. Okay, so conquest in northern Canaan. So when Jabin, king of Hazor, heard of this, he sent to Jobab, king of Madon, and to the king of Shimron, and the king of Akshaph, and to the kings who are in the northern hill country, and in the Arabah south of Shinneroth, and in the lowland, and in Naphor Dor on the west, to the Canaanites in the east and the west, the Amorites, the Hittites. So he's letting them know this, all these people, the Perizzites, the Jebusites in the hill country, and the Hivites under Hermon in the land of Mizpah. And they came out with all their troops, a great horde, because it's all of these people combined, in number like the sand that is on the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. And all these kings joined their forces and came and encamped together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them, for tomorrow at this time I will give over all of them, slain, to Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire." So Joshua and all his warriors came. See how God's a warring God? God is driving this, and he's a warring God. And, we see in the time of David, how David was a man of war as well, how God supported him. And we see this is what David did. He hamstrung their horses, so their horses couldn't be used for anything else, right? Their horses were basically pretty much useless. They couldn't be used for anything, really. So Joshua and all his warriors came suddenly against them by the waters of Merom and fell upon them. And the Lord gave them into the hand of Israel, who struck them and chased them as far as Great Sidon and Mizrephoth Maim, and eastward as far as the valley of Mizpah. and they struck them until he left none remaining. So, I mean, it says, they were as the sand of the sea, but yet because God gave them into their hands, it meant nothing, right? It meant nothing because, once again, there's a passage that we're reading this morning, I believe, and it says, because of God and his influence, like his ability to influence the heart, who can fight against it? Who can come against it? I can't remember the exact words, but it's just, who can come against, who can challenge that, right? If God can go in and put something in someone's heart, which I believe it's talking about Pharaoh and his hardening his heart, how are you going to fight against that? Right? How are you going to challenge that? So it's because God is sovereign over absolutely everything. And so he can go into anything and everything. He can go into anything. And he can put something in the heart of a non-believer or in the heart of a believer to do something or to act in a certain way or whatever it might be. Joshua did to them just as the Lord said. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. And Joshua turned back at that time and captured Hazor and struck its king with the sword. For Hazor formerly was the head of all those kingdoms. And they struck with the sword all who were in it, devoting them to destruction. There was none left that breathed, and he burned Hazor with fire. And all the cities of those kings and all their kings Joshua captured and struck them with the edge of the sword, devoting them to destruction, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. But none of the cities that stood on mounds did Israel burn, except Hazor alone, that Joshua burned. And all of the spoil of these cities and the livestock, the people of Israel took for their plunder. You can imagine, right, so how much plunder they had. But every person they struck with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, and they did not leave any who breathed, just as the Lord had commanded Moses his servant. So Moses commanded Joshua, and so Joshua did. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord had commanded Moses. So Joshua took all that land, the hill country, and all the Negeb, and all the land of Goshen, and the lowland, and the Arabah, and the hill country of Israel, and its lowland, from Mount Halak, which rises towards Seir, as far as Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon below, Mount Hermon at the end of that, and he captured all their kings and struck them and put them to death. Joshua made war a long time with all those kings. There was not a city that had made peace with the people of Israel, except the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. There's these weird commas in these spots here. It's just abrupt ending to a sentence. They took them all in battle, for it was the Lord's doing to harden their hearts that they should come against Israel in battle, in order that they should be devoted to destruction and should receive no mercy, but be destroyed, just as the Lord commanded Moses. Now remember, we're reading about vessels of destruction and vessels for mercy. God is the great potter, and he reserves the right to use his vessels for whatever purpose he sees fit. So if he dedicates a person to destruction, through his creation process, so he creates somebody, he raises them up, but he raises them up like Pharaoh with the purpose that Pharaoh would go to destruction, right? But Pharaoh would be used in order to glorify those who God has mercy on, right? And to glorify his name, but also to point out those he has mercy on, so everybody would know. And so that was the thing with Pharaoh, was God was hardening his heart. Pharaoh was obviously full of pride. That was his personality. But God would continue to harden his heart and didn't allow him to budge. And when he did finally let the Israelites go, then obviously it didn't take him long before he hardened his heart and then wanted to go and kill them all. So there was not a city that made peace with the people of Israel except the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. They took them all in battle, for it was the Lord's doing to harden their hearts, and they should come against Israel in battle, in order that they should be devoted to destruction and should receive no mercy but be destroyed, just as the Lord commanded Moses. And Joshua came at that time and cut off the Anakim, which are the giants, from the hill country from Hebron to Debir, from Anab, and from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua devoted them to destruction with their cities. There was none of the Anakim left in the land of the people of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. So Joshua took the whole land according to all the Lord had spoken to Moses. I'll just have we got time to do the next one? And Joshua gave it for an inheritance to Israel according to their tribal allotments, and the land had rest from war. So it says, he took the land, so everything, right, according to what Moses had spoken, and he gave it to Israel according to their tribal allotments. So they delivered, they cleared the land, right, and they killed the enemies out of the land. Kings defeated by Moses. Now these are the kings of the land whom the people of Israel defeated and took possession of their land and beyond the Jordan toward the sunrise from the valley of the Arnon in Mount Hermon. Let's just see. Yeah, we'll read this bit. With all the Arabah eastward, Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon and ruled from Arir, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, and from the middle of the valley as far as the river Yabok, the boundary of the Ammonites. That's hard to say. Ammonites. That is half of Gilead. And the Arabah to the sea of Shinneroth eastward, and in the direction of Beth Yeshimoth to the sea of the Arabah, the salt sea southward to the foot of the slopes of Pisgah, and Og, king of Bashan, one of the remnant of the Rephaim, so the giants, who lived at Ashtaroth and at Edrei, and ruled over Mount Hermon, and Salakah, and all Bashan, to the boundary of the Geshurites and the Maccathites, and over half of Gilead to the boundary of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the people of Israel defeated them, and Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land for possession to the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh. So, pretty complicated. Kings defeated by Joshua. And these are the kings of the land whom Joshua and the people of Israel defeated on the west side of the Jordan, from Baal Gad in the valley of Lebanon to Mount Halak that rises towards Seir. And Joshua gave their land to the tribes of Israel as a possession, according to their allotments, in the hill country, in the lowland, in the Arabah, in the slopes, in the wilderness, and in the Negev, the land of the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. It's a mouthful. The king of Jericho won. The king of Ai, which is beside Bethel, won. The king of Jerusalem won. The king of Hebron won. The king of Yarmouth won. The king of Lachish won. The king of Eglon won. The king of Gezer won. The king of Debir won. The king of Gedur won. The king of Hormah won. The king of Arad won. The king of Libnah won. The king of Adullam won. The king of Makkedah won. The king of Bethel won. The king of Tappuah won. The king of Hepher won. The king of Aphek won. The king of Lasharon won. The king of Madon won. The king of Hazor won. The king of Shimron won. The king of Ashlach won. The king of Tanakh won. The king of Megiddo, Armageddon, won. The king of Kadesh won. The king of Yokneam in Carmel won. The king of Dor in Naph. No, it's really confusing after you keep saying it. The path Dor, one of the king of the Goyim in Galilee. It's the first time we see Goyim used here, which is what they call those who aren't Jews. One, the king of Tirzah, won in all 31 kings. All right, so we're seeing here, ultimately what we've read tonight is that Jericho and Ai, and obviously all the preceding places were taken by Joshua and the tribes of Israel, and they're starting to become such an army. And we see that now they've had their land distributed to them and so forth, but there's still more work to be done. So we still see here where we'll pick it up tomorrow morning, land still to be conquered. So can you please read all those names again? Yeah, not likely, Ed. It's not going to happen. Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Once again, I got to go to the dentist tomorrow, and if they rip my tooth out tomorrow, it's going to be pretty awkward. But I'll message in the community section if I can't read tomorrow night for whatever reason. But I'm all good for the morning, so we're going to read then, and we'll just see what happens. So I'm not reading again. Oh, Suze. Thank you, Suze. You've been you guys have been champions. You've been turning up at literally like morning and evening for the reading. So I really appreciate the support on the channel and the encouragement as well. You guys are awesome. Thank you. And to everyone else that turns up as well and turns up each day or whenever you can. It's awesome. So appreciate it. Yeah, that's me done. I think today has just been the longest day. So it's time for it to be over. It's I've been awake since like I think it was 1:30 or something. And yeah, I mean we were reading at 10:30 p.m. so it's only like 3 hours sleep and then keep going. So anyway, let's keep going, and I'm going to go to bed soon, and then I'll see you guys in the morning. This day is done. God bless and Maranatha.